Well, hello, that's me again. Today is December 10th. It's the end of the weekend. It's Sunday, and let's do some update of some really interesting news. Fact is, I would say revelations, honestly. But we will start with Mr. Austin. Which is really on the heels of what Washington Post described was happening in and around Pentagon, if to believe them. So, which I think so we can believe them after those two sensational articles. And Pentagon threatening Americans over Ukraine. Tucker Carlson talks about it, and probably already read this news. And point is that U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin reportedly told members of Congress that unless they approve more funding to Ukraine, Americans will be sent to fight Russia directly, former Fox News host Tucker Carlson said on Thursday. What Mr. Austin stated is that we will send your uncles, cousins, and sons to fight Russia unless Kyiv gets the $60 billion in aid requested by the White House. The Biden administration is openly threatening Americans over Ukraine, Carlson said on X, formerly Twitter, summarizing Austin's message as pay the oligarchs who will kill your kids. He really said this, asked Elon Musk, and he really did, confirmed, said Carlson. There is nothing new in that, and it's the level of desperation. But the point, obviously, is in simple fact that at this stage, militarily, United States can send really very little. Unless, of course, they follow the wish list which Mr. Zelensky and his, whoever the Umerov guy, the Minister of Defense, compiled. It's a great list if you read it. It's F-18 fighters, it's THAAD, terminal high altitude, anti-ballistic missile interceptors. So it's a bunch of things which United States obviously doesn't want to give to anybody, including obviously its allies in NATO, unless it is, of course, they pay huge, sums of money for that. But no, that's what Ukraine wants, and they think that those, Wunderwaffen, obviously in quotation marks, somehow may save what is remaining of the armed forces of Ukraine. No. The money are primarily for laundering and basically feeding the DNC election machine, and for being benefits for whoever the families benefit, like from Biden family and Biden clan to other people who are on the receiving end of those laundered money, because the rest of it is just basically to support with its now moribund Ukrainian state. And in terms of armed forces, I don't think so anything could be done. And yeah, they talk about that they will send here and there, like Germany, 200,000 shells next year. Sure, that's about what, 3 days of Russian use of the shells. So, you basically get already the good idea what we're talking about, because militarily and technologically it's over. And yeah, as Mariinka has fallen. Russians raised the flag there. So Avdiivka is fully surrounded. Then we'll have a huge, obviously, strike against the whatever is remaining on the morale of the armed forces of Ukraine. And then we have now a bunch of other people, for like Mr. whatever his name, Green. He is Ukrainian, but he has evidently some kind of the English type, second name, and he was talking with Mr. Arestovich, and he admitted basically that we need to move to the west if we want to defend anything at all. So, because obviously their army, whatever their formations are defending now at Kupiansk operational axis, they are doomed now. They will be annihilated. And Kupiansk will fall too, So it's kind of, self-evident thing. That is why I do not concentrate much on those tactical and even operational minutiae, because it's pretty much clear. The only thing, as I already stated, which everybody asks, me included, is when this and if this big red arrow, offensive will start. But when you listen to what Mr. Austin said, you begin to understand why Russia has those many hundreds of thousands of the regular troops, not just volunteers. Volunteers covered up pretty much all necessity in the partial mobilization. But we're talking about those other regular cadre troops which stand behind just in case if indeed the United States decides somehow to commit suicide and introduce whatever they have there. I don't know, they have like one brigade brigade combat team already in Poland, something in Romania, so if they think that they can fight Russians with that, or if they will be able to pre-position, pre-deploy forces, whatever the forces the United States has right now, to fight Russians, well, good luck with that. And the only danger of this is what I'm constantly stressing, that there are enough, nut jobs in the White House, and there are and the United States is traditionally nuclear biased nation, because once it begins to lose conventionally, it will think immediately about using not just the tactical nukes, no, it will think about using them and escalating to the full-blown nuclear threshold. But that gets us also into the other thing, which is absolutely ridiculous. And of course, while Lloyd Austin was talking about that, they want to send basically children, which is actually not a bad idea, children of US congressmen and senators and bureaucrats to fight Russians. It's a great idea, I think so. That's how the war will end up really fast. But here we have this cadre and senior US official outlined a strategy for Ukraine as he urged lawmakers to sign off on more aid. And he talking about the guy is the White House wants to keep funding Ukraine in its conflict with Russia because it believes that in a year Moscow may be willing to concede to Kyiv's demands and aid to Jake Sullivan, the U.S. National Security Advisor, said in the interview on Tuesday. John Feiner, Sullivan's principal deputy, discussed the White House Ukraine strategy at an event hosted by the Aspen Institute of an influential think tank. There are no influential think tanks anymore in the United States. They are influential within the United States. They are butt of jokes and their sheer incompetence and ignorance all around the world. But who is this senior U.S. official and aide to Jake Sullivan? And Jake Sullivan, as you might remember, he is a lawyer and political scientist who never served a day in the armed forces. Well, let's take a look at Mr. Feiner's CV. Okay, so this is the aide. This is the guy who talks strategy. Jonathan Feiner, born 1976, is an American journalist and civil servant who serves as Deputy National Security Advisor under National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan in the administration of the U.S. President Joe Biden. So he was the director of some policy planning for former Secretary of State John Kerry. And guess who he is? He was a native of Norwich, Vermont. His mother was the principal of the Francis Richmond School, and his father a doctor. He's Jewish. Feiner graduated from Hanover High School in Hanover, New Hampshire. He attended Harvard University, where he developed an interest in international relations after spending time working for the Labour Party in the United Kingdom. While at Harvard, he covered sports for Harvard Crimson. He earned a Juris Doctor from Yale Law School, where he co-founded the Iraqi Refugee Assistance Project, and he got a Master of Philosophy in International Relations from Balliol College, Oxford, where he was a Rhodes Scholar. Feiner also spent a year in Hong Kong as Henry Luce Foundation Scholar, working as a reporter and editor at the Far Eastern Economic Review. In other words, the guy has zero, in fact, negative background to speak about any kind of the national security issues, because he wouldn't know crap from Shinola. Thank you for people who pointed me out to the Shinola, which are American watches. I knew about the existence before, but you know what kind of Shinola I am talking about. And this is, guys, the level of the lack of expertise, so to speak, in the modern American government. It's absolutely astonishing, with people who have zero understanding what national security is, how it is formed, how international or geopolitical power balance and military balance is formed. Those people, the guy is a journalist who was reporting on sports, for crying out loud, and he is now the aide to another political scientist, and the guy who has no clue what modern militaries are, what modern strategies are, and how they are developed. And this is the level of the American elites. These are political elites who still think that they can make Russians suffer. Of course, Russians sustain some losses, and of course, Russians have some questions about it, but do they even understand where it is all going? Or some smart people maybe finally begin to break through to their basically, rigid brains, and not very big one brains. You don't need to have an outstanding qualities to graduate the journalism faculty or department from any university. And they suddenly have to recognize what is going on. But if that hasn't been enough, and we already see there what is happening in terms of their development of the special military operation, here's obviously the meme which is basically circling, floating around in the mass media. This is the British Telegraph, and again, British media are this collection of the imbeciles, and I mean it literally. Those people, they have no clue. Here's the Telegraph about a year and a half ago. In defeat, Vladimir Putin is becoming desperate. It is likely that in the mess of war there will be more accidents. That is why the Russians must be beaten. Okay, then we have recent, the headline from the Telegraph. Putin is close to victory. Europe should be terrified. Ukraine's time is running out. The danger is that the EU faces the same fate as the Holy Roman Empire. So these are the two headlines with less than a year, between them. And that just tells you, basically, when you look attentively at those so-called, especially British military experts, oh my God, those colonels, those generals and admirals, I never saw anything in my life, something like this. This is it beats even the American generals, or as my friend Vladimir Truhan says, how many their competent generals do they have left? 1.5? I said probably 1.75. But British are totally another special case. And when this hasn't been enough, and here we have to touch upon this very important technical issue. And the technical issue is this. Mr. Putin drops a bomb, actually, day before yesterday, and the bomb is this: no limit to sharing tech with China. Putin, even military secrets are not off the table, the Russian president has suggested when he was talking to the Russia Calling forum. And they are basically, what is he talking about? We know some secrets obviously are on the table, and we know what Russia did in terms of helping China to develop early warning system of the missile attack. That is Russia directly involved, and this is obviously involves transfer of an extremely advanced radar technologies and other sensor technologies. But what is he talking about? In March, when Mr. Z and his massive delegation visited Moscow for 2 days, and of course the first day they had these closed-door negotiations with Vladimir Putin, and which lasted several hours. And then, of course, we know that in the last year, Putin and Z have been talking person to each other for more than 15 hours. So that tells you something. What they were talking about. Well, let me tell you what they were most likely talking about, and I made this statement, in March this year, when I stated most likely the key military cooperation issue which has been discussed was the discussion of Russia transferring hypersonic technology such as Kinzhal. Russia obviously is not going to transfer the Zircon hypersonic anti-shipping missile technology, but Kinzhal looked most likely. People say, oh, but Chinese do have their own hypersonic weapons. Well, they do. And let's talk about it, why I still think, and fact is I'm ready to actually defend my point of view as I was defending it for the last 8 months, why it is most likely about Kinzhal. And here we have to go and do the real basic math. And some people say that, oh yeah, this cannot be right, but well, actually, you know what, this is right. Consider this issue. Chinese have their own what is called hypersonic, but they are purely ballistic hypersonic missiles such as DF-21D. Here is what we can read from the Naval Post. It's one of the America's more or less competent publications online, and you can see yourself. They talk about the China reportedly is fielding 2 types of land-based ballistic missiles with the capability of hitting ships and sea. And actually they developed evidently its shipborne variant, and one of the Type 55 destroyers, magnificent ship, very powerful, it was shown launching this missile, DF-21D, in the shipborne variant. And here is what they say. A road mobile anti-shipping ballistic missile with a range of more than 910 nautical miles. They talk about DF-26, which is a road mobile, but we are interested in DF-21D, which was reconfigured into purely anti-shipping missile, which allegedly can hit moving target. This, if those people who do not understand what I am talking about, look up Soviet experimentation with the ballistic missiles in anti-shipping role, which were happening in the late 50s, early 60s. Russians at that time said, nah, we're not going to do that, and concentrated to developing their anti-shipping missiles, cruise missiles. And here is what they say. Unlike DF-26, as we already stated, DF-21D, which is 910 nautical miles, which approximately 1,750 kilometers range, it likely have a multiple seeker, both active and passive, and sufficient maneuverability to hit a target with a terminal seeker's effective area. What is terminal seeker's effective area? We'll talk about this later, but you already probably understand what it is. It's the area which actually the seeker can scan before it completely locks on the target after refined search, and then you know what, yeah, it's over. Thus, adequately designed ballistic missile can be pretty maneuverable. And what they say it's describing the DF-21D is that it is supposed to carry, well, basically 700 kilograms, 1,330 pound warhead with maneuverable re-entry. With ACBM and anti-shipping ballistic missiles, the Chinese Navy could have the capability to conduct long-range precision strike against ships, including aircraft carriers, out to the Western Pacific from mainland China while protecting its surface assets. Numerous studies suggest that the U.S. Navy cannot operate within the first island chain stretching from Japan to Malaysia. But I'm on record also for many times that basically we need to talk about the fact that, yeah, United States Navy just for realistically first island chain is a no-go for the U.S. Navy because it will be sunk within there, except, of course, for the submarines. But obviously, it's not only just the F-21s which will prevent it, but it's also the Chinese Air Force. And then, of course, Chinese also, as you can see yourself, the even U.S. Naval Institute 2 years ago explains how Chinese were training those missiles. They built mock-ups of U.S. Navy destroyers and U.S. Navy aircraft carriers. This ones is non-movable. Then there were some movable targets. Evidently, they pulled them on the rail, and then they started to, shooting their DF-21, trying to figure out what is the best trajectory and how to hit it properly. So they were in the development of this for a long time, and evidently they have the number of the issues already resolved, and so they have now, deployed DF-21 in its shipborne form. What is the real range of it, I don't know, but I would say probably no less than, 1,500 kilometers, which is great. But here is the issue. And here where we come to the fact why people still say that, oh, why do you say that, the Kinzhal probably is the focus of discussion between Russians and Chinese, which evidently also brings us to the issue of the carriers. No, not Chinese H-6 subsonic bomber. We're talking about supersonic and high supersonic platform, which of course Russians have MiG-31K and I types, including evidently for the latest version iteration of Kinzhal, and of course and now we know that Su-34s are capable to carry it. Both are supersonic aircraft. So will Russians basically transfer the supersonic aircraft? I know that MiG-31s are being modernized and upgraded to like there is no tomorrow by Russians, and so are Su-34. So, but it's pure speculations for now. But guess what? Why would they want Kinzhal? And here comes this crucial thing. It's pure geometry and arithmetics. Kinzhal range is 2,000 plus, well, let's say 2,000 kilometers. With the platform such as MiG-31K, it basically reaches the range of 27, at least 100 kilometers. It's almost 1,000 kilometers longer than whatever they have at the DF-21D, especially considering the fact if its land version will be removed on near-shore areas, and possibly on the ships, but it's still within the primarily first island chain. But once you have thing like Su-34 or MiG-31 carrying Kinzhal together with the, as I already stated, at least 2,700 kilometers. Why does it matter? That matters for a simple reason. Even the U.S. Naval Institute and American officers say that, you know what, in this particular case, what you need to do, you need to either break the targeting chain for the DF-21D, or you can stay beyond the range, and they can do it. Look at this. I spoke about this before. I will talk about this now again. You see this? This is LRASM, long-range achieving cruise missile, and it's also land attack. It could be carried by F-18 Hornet, and it is nothing more than an iteration of the JASSM missile with the range ranging between 900 kilometers and 1900 kilometers. And guess what? Here we have the basically explanation what is JASSM and JASSM-ER, JASSM extended range, which could be carried not only by F-18s, as you can see yourself, extended range of JASSM is 1,800 kilometers, the same as the F-21D. And that means that you pull back your aircraft carriers and you launch your aircraft to the range of about what? The F-18 can have the range with when it's loaded with the 2 or 3 LRASMs about what? 700 kilometers to 1,000 kilometers. Of course, they can refuel it. And suddenly, you have to really move your DF-21s much closer to the aircraft carrier battle group. But this is not how it works, of course, guys. And then suddenly what you need the weapon system with the very long range, which of course Kinzhal is. Which, of course, and I already stated, the bottom line of it is at least 2,700 kilometers. In the probably refueling and other variants, it can go as far as 3,000, 3,200 kilometers. That's when you begin to outrange those aircraft carriers, then you begin to keep them away in such a manner that they even cannot launch their F-18s. And of course, they have the other iterations for the JASSM, which of course can be carried by the strategic bombers and like B-2, evidently I think they think B-21 will carry this, and of course B-1Bs can carry this JASSM thing, but you have to understand that they will have to base them somewhere, and this is where the Chinese longer range classic ballistic missiles of the intermediate range up to 5,500 kilometers come in play where they can destroy the bases, airfields on which those B-1Bs or B-2s will be based, including of course reaching Guam. And just looking at this, you understand why they would like to have something like this. And again, we don't even know what is the newest iteration of Kinzhal, and there is a new iteration of Kinzhal which flies probably, well, let's put it this way, rumor has it much longer than 2,000 kilometers. You add your range of at least 700 kilometers to the threshold of launch by the carrier of the Kinzhal, admittedly MiG-31 and Su-34, and you have it. Of course, then you have also Tu-22M3, which is now configured to carry this, and that is already a significant extend range even beyond that. And suddenly you can have what? You really can push away the carrier battle groups with all those alpha strikes way into the Pacific, and suddenly they will have no ability to strike Chinese both land and Chinese Navy operating, or as they call it, PLAN, People's Liberation Army Navy. That's how strangely they, address it to. And then you have this situation. This is a strategic move suddenly. So, was Mr. Putin talking about it? I'm pretty sure. Let's put it this way. I'm 95% sure that this is precisely what he was talking about. Because in the end, China needs to defend her land mass and navy operating within the first island chain. And there you go. And that is why when you look at the ranges, which United States Institute gives for their ballistic, anti-shipping ballistic missiles, as you can see yourself, they show here in the orange anti-shipping missiles such as CCS-5. They call the different names, but we know that they are talking about in kilometers. This is the obviously precisely the DF-21Ds, which, as you can see yourself, cover a little bit beyond the first island chain, but definitely do not get into the second island chain. And in this case, if you have the distance, which is what Kinzhal gives you with the carriers such as even MiG-31, yes, you get into the 3,000 kilometer range, which is green, and guess what? You cover the second island chain, and beyond the second island chain, US carrier battle groups, they become absolutely useless unless they want to attack some kind of the outlying, the posts of the and airfields on those islands somewhere in the Pacific. And other than that, that pretty much speaks itself very clearly what is this all about. And that's what I think Mr. Putin was talking about. That's what he had in his mind, and I had this in mind for a while now, after I learned that they spent first day after Xi visited Moscow with his immensely representative delegation. They spent something like, I don't remember, 4.5 or 5 hours behind closed doors. Guess what? They were not discussing economics there. They were discussing military technological cooperation. And this also goes with the other things such as Russian latest air defense complexes and things of this nature. So that's what Mr. Putin was talking about. And keep in mind, Russians will never share anything unless they already have a next generation of the weapons approaching, even considering an extremely friendly and extremely fruitful relations with China, and obviously strategic interest, mutual strategic interest, and what can I say? So we will see. At some point of time, we will be probably given some news about this, especially against the incredibly aggressive rhetoric against China from the United States, which also everybody understands are getting ready to unleash some other war. But who knows who they will be using it against. Pardon me. So, in conclusion, here's another thing which tells you something very important. Russian trade with the West forecast to plunge. Yeah, yesterday. Russia trade with unfriendly countries has dropped threefold since 2021 and is on course for a further decline, according to a report from the Russian Center for Strategic Research, published on yesterday. The term unfriendly refers, of course, to the Western country. And by 2030, Russia's economic cooperation with unfriendly states meaning of course primarily Western Europe, is forecast to decrease 5 times against 2021 year figures, analysts say. Not surprising, and as I already stated, Russia is detaching herself from the combined West, and really there's nothing to do with the West anymore. I mean, to do what? I mean, and technological Russia is increasingly, getting completely independent from Western technologies. Then, of course, you have China and other Asian, basically tigers, which, if need be, Russia can always substitute with some of their imports. And, of course, if to demonstrate to you what it means, so it's just take a look at this thing. This is Finland, a report for 2023 October. You see in red, this is when the industry of Finland and Finland joined NATO. As you can see yourself, it went in terms of shrinkage of its manufacturing sector. I mean, below zero, in negative numbers and negative territory, and will continue to stay there for a while until it deindustrializes, the same way as Germany is happening, especially considering Finns' very good, economic operation and connections and mutually beneficial connections with Russia, which now they just broke off. And yeah, what can I say? Well, too bad. Russia is okay. Well, of course, now Finns want to reopen, starting on December 14th, all those checkpoints, border checkpoints, because, well, when you don't have Russians traveling there and Finns traveling to Russia, you're beginning to have a real serious economic impact, considering the fact that the full population of Finland is about the size of one of the boroughs of Moscow, so which is about 5-6 million. So when you look at this, you can only scratch your head. And you know what? Yeah, let Lloyd Austin gather all those sons of U.S. senators, congressmen, lobbyists, and what have you, and especially those people from the administration itself, and send them to fight Russia. See what's gonna happen after that. So this is what I wanted to tell you today, guys. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And of course, please support me on Patreon and buy me coffee or two. And what can I say? Have a nice rest of your weekend, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.